Welcome to our webinar. How's our volume, Caleb? You hearing us okay, Miss Rebecca? All right. So this is going to be a two-part series on safety. I'll be driving mostly today, and the goal is to empower you guys really just to think a little bit on making better decisions and decisions that result hopefully in a safe outcome. Every safe trip is a stack of good decisions. It's rarely one mistake that causes a tragedy. It's actually when the holes line up. I call that the holes in the Swiss cheese, so to speak.
Our radio's going in and out, not sure what's going on, but we seem to be having some type of an electrical problem. So if you lose us, you might want that noted in your system. CFR currently to Tango Tango Alpha, if you can hear me. It's in and out. I think we're going to lose you, though, and it's not the frequency. It's something to do with the radio. The radio's going in and out by this line.
Roger Deck Unicom, this is FBO. Please be advised there's a Cirrus November 5656 Mike about 3 miles south of the field. They're wanting to come in runway 03. They are potential engine failure. They have no communications.
I want to be sensitive to this, guys, because the audio that you just heard is actual audio. This has happened in July of last year. It's the Buchanan family from Raleigh, North Carolina. They took off from Florida in their small plane and headed home to North Carolina. They never made it. Their plane went down. It was about 1 mile short of the runway. All four folks on board, including the two children, did not survive the crash. The weather was clear. The winds were light. What actually happened? I remember this last year. The decisions that stacked up. Remember, today we're really going to focus on the decisions that we make. And so bear with me as I get through this portion and I'll tie it all together for you. It was never the electrical failure. So if you can see the cursor on my screen, does that show up for you guys? So they started down in Florida, and somewhere along in here is when you heard that initial call that said, hey, our electrical is not working. We're having communication issue. It's just going in and out. If you look at this flight path, there's never a landing. They stayed in the air the entire time. They were in constant communication with ATC, having trouble there. And what happened is he ended up running the thing completely out of fuel. This plane is equipped with a parachute. They had opportunity to pull the parachute. They never did that. The crash site that was 1 mile short of the runway was a nice open field, lots of opportunity for a forced landing that more than likely would have provided a survivable outcome. But instead, the pilot chose to ignore the fuel issue by inadequate planning, ignore the electrical issue, sort of get their itis, if you will. We've got to get home. Probably, maybe wife is ready. The kids have been in the plane for a while. They're ready to get out. And so he pressed on and unfortunately tried to maintain altitude, stalled the plane, and crashed into the ground. So it was not one failure in decision or just one failure that caused it. It was a stack of decisions with his family on board. Let's look at one more of these and we'll move on. Dad, why don't we just stay the night? Let's just spend the night instead of worrying about this weather on the flight home. They made a decision to go hours before the spiral ever started. This just happened this month, this July. Father and son flying home from a ball game. Jimmy Don Lewis, age 48, his son Braden. They had watched the Cardinals and Brewers up in the Illinois area, and they decided after the game, son, we're going to go home. They thought they could beat the weather. Twin engine airplane and flew a perfectly good flying, running plane into a storm. Now let's look at the storm. So this is where they started, the ALN. They made a right-hand turn and flew right into that convective area there. And small planes and thunderstorms do not go together well. The thunderstorm always wins. So it was weather that night. They made poor decisions, first of all, flying at night, much more dangerous. Secondly, as a pilot, there's so many tools available to look at weather and reports and NOTAMs and convective segments. And there's even pre-flight planning weather centers that you could call and talk to another person and say, hey, I'm looking to fly from point A to point B. They'll give you the route, they'll give you the storms, they'll tell you exactly the safety level. For whatever reason, this pilot chose to ignore all of that. Perhaps I've done it 1,000 times in the past. Who really knows? But they flew into it, one decision that stacked up, the Swiss cheese holes aligned, and it resulted in a tragedy. So, why is a horse trailer guy showing you plane crashes? Oh my gosh, did I grab the wrong slide? And it's because the same discipline is at work in both. You can't always prevent the emergency. Good decisions, though, they will stack the odds in your favor. They'll help you avoid the wreck, and they'll also help you survive the one that you can't. It's decided long before you ever load your horse, and it's those choices that we're going to talk about today in detail, those decisions that you make that can often decide the outcome. Who the heck is this guy? I'm Brad Heath, founded Double D Trailers. My dad and I back in 1997. I'm a husband, a father of 6, a grandfather of 3. I invented the safe tack reverse. I've been building horse trailers for over 30 years. And a couple years ago, we wrote a book, The Honest to Goodness Truth, about horse trailers. And fun fact, in case you didn't pick up on that, I am a private pilot. It didn't start with just me. So again, founded in 1997 by myself and my dad. And we grew and strengthened the brand with my brother Bartley. And then today it is myself with my oldest daughter Brooke and my son-in-law, Brooke's husband, Caleb, who is on with us. So if you reach out to Double D Trailers, you're probably going to be talking to myself or Brooke or Caleb. We also have with us today as a guest panelist. This is the first webinar that we have done with a panelist, Dr. Rebecca Husted. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If not, she will correct me. Brooke actually sent me a nice Slack. I keep looking down because let me just rotate my camera here for you guys so you can see. Well, you can't quite see it there, but Caleb's right beside me and Brooke is just down at the end for him. But Brooke, you sent me a nice Slack message earlier with the proper presentation for Rebecca, and I have lost that and don't have it on my screen. So, uh, Rebecca, welcome. And she literally wrote the book on large animal rescue. If you've got something you could give to me on that, I would love to show that. Actually, let me just grab it. I've got it right here. Hang on, Rebecca. Hang on. Don't start throwing stuff at me yet. Oh,
Listen, I was just going to say I'm Rebecca.
well, I've got it now. Look at there. Dr. Rebecca Husted, a PhD in animal physiology. I don't even know what that means, from Clemson University, retired U.S. Army signal officer, combat veteran, president of Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue. And she spent decades training veterinarians, first responders around the world, and helped write and edit the first textbook on large animal emergency rescue. So when it comes to rescue, she literally did write the book. And when Rebecca and I first spoke, I said, do I call you Dr. Husted or Rebecca or Miss Rebecca, or what would you like? And she said, well, if it's a rude person, you have to address me as doctor, but everybody else, I'm just Rebecca. So, Rebecca, we're so honored that you have taken the time to join us today. Again, as I said earlier, I'll be driving mostly today. And our part 2 series, Rebecca will be doing all of that presentation and we'll be sitting on the sidelines. So we're super excited. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
All right. What I've learned from every crash that I've studied. And I did read a really smart person said they prefer not to call horse trailer incidents or accidents, either of those terms, but prefer to call them a crash because that's actually what they are. And Rebecca, that is you. I read that on one of your slides. So I've got to give the credit where the credit is due. The one thing that I do learn from accident investigations on airplane crashes, we get to more thoroughly examine the thought process, how many hours the pilot had, what type of ratings did he have, the type of plane, what the weather was, the flight plan. There's so much that goes into it. The NTSB examines all of the wreckage. They look at the fuel, the engine, those type things. So they're very detailed accident reports. And we take from that what we can to learn in the decisions that we make to hopefully not make those mistakes again. So it's almost never one thing. And I've broken these down into four. That's what we're going to discuss today. The equa owner, equestrian owner, that was a term I came up with. Who knows if it's a good one or not? The horse, the trailer, and the tow vehicle. It's a series of decisions, a chain of choices that ends up in a good outcome or a bad one. It's rarely one mistake. It's when several stack up, and we are going to start with you, the equa owner. So let's dive in. ADM versus EDM. And I promise I won't speak pilot language all day, but I have learned a lot from that. When I first started flying, I had a lot of these attitudes myself, probably the anti-authority, impulsivity. Caleb and I just want to, hop in the plane and go grab some lunch somewhere. And I don't really want to learn all this stuff about weather. If the weather's good, I'll go. If the weather's not good, I won't go. And over the years, I have learned to make much smarter and safer decisions. So all the acronyms that the FAA really enjoys, ADM, EDM. ADM, aeronautical decision making, we're going to coin that as EDM, which is equine decision making. And I hope that some of these attitudes you guys don't have, but it's just a checkup on yourself. The hazardous attitudes, the mindsets that cause bad decisions, the anti authority, again, you don't tell me the limits, the impulsivity, invulnerability. It won't happen to me. I've got this narrow rear tack. I've loaded my horse 700 times. I've never had an issue. So I'm good. The macho, I can handle it, no problem. Resignation, there's nothing I can do about it anyway. It's just going to happen if it's going to happen. And complacency, that's just one that I added. I've done this 100 times, which is the enemy of command. Pilot in command versus equa owner in command. So I want you guys to understand this. The final authority, not the dealer, not the mechanic, not the last owner of your trailer, is you. You decide if a rig is safe to roll. You decide if you should go today. You decide the horse, the trailer, the tow vehicle, the route. And when you hook it up, it's your outcome. Being in command means knowing your rig, your truck, and trailer. Oh, but I'm not a mechanic. I don't know any of that stuff. When as an aircraft owner, the FAA requires us every year to go through an annual inspection. They're very expensive. They generally last a couple, 3, 4 weeks, sometimes even longer, depending on what they find. But I always go to those. I look at it when it's stripped down to bare bones minimum. I'll make several trips to make sure that I have a better understanding of my equipment. I want to understand the electrical system. If I have problems, I know how to address that. And it's the same thing with particularly your trailer. So you don't have to turn the wrench, but you do have to be the one who knows and who checks. It's your responsibility. You are the EIC. You're the equa owner in command. Just small stuff. The trailer lights run on a separate circuit from the truck. Where your spare is, do you know how to get your spare out on your truck, or do you have a wrench to change the tire on your trailer? What's the tow haul button? You know, that little button some of you guys probably have on your vehicle. How does it work? What is it there for? The breakaway battery, how does it charge? How does it fire? Did you know that tires age out? They don't necessarily wear out, and what the bearings and brakes and coupler should look like. So be there when the work is done, ask questions, take pictures so that you can remember. Nobody else is going to run the check for you. And I'm going to show you an example where some of this actually did fail, even from the shop. Any questions that we've got? Caleb, you're monitoring questions coming through. Miss Rebecca, never mind. Just Rebecca, not Miss Rebecca. It's my Southern. We were just taught to say
Southern
yes,
hospitality.
yes, sir, no, sir, yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, and me. Yep. So I apologize for that. You have some thoughts to jump in on this, Rebecca?
I was going to say I love the example of being the pilot because a lot of people don't realize that in the United States, we went 17 years without a single person on a US certified carrier dying on a plane. Yet 40,000 people a year die on our interstate roadways. And people are scared to be on a plane. And I'm thinking, man, get me to the plane and let me get there on the plane. So much safer because their attitudes are we have to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, well spoken. Feel free to jump in anytime. If I ramble too much or you see something that doesn't sit well with you, you just say, "Hey, boy, hey, Brad," and we'll stop right there. Tires age out; they don't wear out. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but there's a blowout that gutted the side of the trailer. This came into us in the last month. Yeah,
Yeah, a
something
couple
like that.
weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. And it was a tire that looked fine, but it had aged out. It let go at speed, full, 50, 60 miles an hour, destroyed the side of the trailer. And EIC, Equa Owner in Command level check, would have caught that before you ever pulled out of the driveway. You said, well, what am I, a rocket scientist? How am I supposed to know that the chemical compound of the rubber was worn down enough that the tire was going to blow out? Each and every tire has a date code stamped to the side of the tire. We've got some articles on that. Google how to look up the date code, and you can easily identify when those tires were made. And Rebecca, I don't know if you have a rule of thumb or what your thoughts are, but we generally recommend changing tires every 4 to 5 years. Yep. What
Yep.
is yours? Yep, 4 to 5,
five
4 to 5.
years.
Yep.
5 years, manufacturer specs usually, and it can save you some money if you know those date codes because then the guy that puts your tires on can't give you a tire that's 2 years old and sell it to you as being brand new.
That is correct. We've always had the dilemma and questions too. As a manufacturer, a majority of the tires are made overseas, China, wherever they're made. They are built to various specs. So one tire brand will have a different spec than what another will. But you have to think by the time it's made in China, it gets on a container. Maybe it sits at the Strait of Hormuz for 2 months during all the stuff that's happening there. Finally makes it to the US, goes into a distributor warehouse, and then finally gets shipped to our warehouse, which sits, I mean, by the time all that happens, the tire might be a year old before it's ever even put into service. So I've had a lot of folks ask me, they're like, well, hey, these tires are already showing a year and a half old. And then if the trailer sits on a dealer lot for 6 months or more, you can quickly see a 2-year-old tire. But I tend to lean toward, and Rebecca, jump in on this, I tend to lean more towards when the tire goes into service
Yep.
because that's when it will start those heat cycles. It gets hot while you're traveling, it gets cold while you sit, hot and cold. So that's going to cause the breakdown of the rubber some. And it's also sitting out in the elements, when it's in an enclosed warehouse where the sun's not hitting it and it's probably not sub-freezing temperatures in there. So I tend to think when it goes into service. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. One of my friends when I was in grad school was actually working for Michelin as an intern, and they were testing tires. And he's the one that told me, 5 years. The wear starts when you start using the tire, and then 5 years.
Yeah, I like that. You have a hand raised or anything? Did I see that?
We did have somebody that asked a question, or they made a comment rather. They said, just replaced the tires on my two-horse slant that the tread looked amazing, but they were dry rotting.
Yeah, yeah. It would be interesting to know the date code on that. This trailer on the screen. That was a 2013.
It
Woo!
was, and I'm not sure whether the tires were new, or I don't know the age of them. I don't know if they were original to when it was purchased. Um, Very certainly possible, just from dealing with the customers that we work with.
Thanks for the question or the comment, by the way. Here's
Do have the dated code she said was 2018.
Hmm.
okay. Yeah, good. So yeah, if it was made in 18, it may have gone into service in 2019 or something like that, depending on that window of shipping and manufacturing and distributorship and all of those things. So this is Charles Fergus. He's in, I think, New Hampshire, New Jersey. I can't remember exactly which. Vermont. Yeah, I was close. Somewhere up in that part of the
Vermont. Yep.
US. And Charles sent a message and he said, look, I have a serious concern. He has one of our trailers. It's a small 2 horse. He bought it years ago. He loves the trailer, but he says, I have a serious concern. You guys use cables instead of chains. And let me share with you what happened to me. So he's driving down the interstate, and I think my next slide will show which interstate it was. And the hitch, I've never seen this. The hitch, the tow hitch that was on his vehicle rusted so bad, so badly that you can see the ball is kind of turned up in this picture. The trailer popped off. It slammed down on the road. And I think when it slammed down, it probably snapped one of those cables. I'm not sure exactly why, because the cable was adequately rated, but something pinched it enough to cut the cable. So he has one cable driving 60 plus miles an hour down the interstate with this little trailer behind the vehicle going back and forth. Thankfully, the part where the cable was hooked to held. Now, Charles came up and he said, look, this is his quote in his email. He said, it was a very frightening experience. I don't believe I've trailered since. The best thing is that there were no horses on the trailer. So, yeah, if he were full load with another 2,000 or 2,500 pounds, yeah, factory hitch failed on I-91. Why was that missed? Have you ever heard of that, Rebecca? Have you ever seen in
Oh,
someone's?
I have seen that, and whenever you're up in the Northeast or any place where they use brine and salt, that looks exactly like the kinds of things that we see over time. But you can't see it without getting down on your leg, down on your belly like a reptile, and turning upside down and pulling out a flashlight and doing those kind of things. And I think, Brad, that's the challenge is we have to really look, not just lean down and look. You got to really look.
Well, I had a conversation with Charles, and he said, look, I actually had the truck and the trailer at the shop to do an inspection or what have you. It was in the last 2 months. It was this year. And he said, and I can't believe the shop didn't check that. And so remember, Equa owner in command, it's your responsibility. Don't trust the mechanic. I can't tell you how many folks have come to us that have had bearing failures or other types of failures on their trailer not long after it was inspected at a mechanic shop. So just because the shop gives you a bill and says that they've gone through it, don't take their word for it. Get in the vehicle, go down, meet with the mechanic, make them pull the wheel off, make them show you when they're repacking those bearings what it looks like. Take some pictures of it so that you understand in your mind, I know my rig. This is what's happening.
I tell people to play blonde. Really?
Yeah, right.
Wow. Whatever works for you, but you need to get smart about it. And the thing is, it forces the owner of those shops to do the right thing.
Yeah, they may not like you being, in their shop and looking over their shoulder, but I think if you approach them with the blonde, I have no
Mhm.
idea what I'm doing here. Could you just show me in case I have a problem and it helps me understand better? So I think if you present it to them right, you'll be just fine.
I got
A
a
little,
couple questions on tires if you would like.
yeah.
Just one, yeah. Somebody just said, does it matter if a trailer sits mostly, hauls maybe 6 to 10 times a year, 2 to 3 hour trips for the lifespan of the tire? If you got a trailer that's mostly sitting, and then
Mhm.
somebody somewhat related, Can you comment on rotating tires versus replacing the set?
I'm going to throw that to Rebecca. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
It's not so much the amount of time that it rolls, it's what happens to it while it's sitting. So, is it sitting in the sun? Is it sitting on pavement? Have you made some effort to cover it up? The UV is really hard on tires, but as Victor McPherson, one of my technicians that worked on, he's a diesel mechanic and technician. He's got all these certifications as a technician for various things with vehicles and diesel stuff. He always says it rots from the inside. So
Right.
obviously, if it's hotter because it's sitting in the sun, that causes that reaction to happen faster. You can do some of those kinds of things, but it really comes down to the age of that tire.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then what about the rotation? You have any thoughts there?
That comes down, and I've never seen anybody do the research on actual horse trailers, but I will notice, I personally, I have load range G tires on my big living quarters trailer. And because I have the big 12,000 pound axles, I'm able to balance and rotate tires and have a lot of success with it because your tires will stay balanced because it's a heavier duty axle. It's a better quality tire that's on that axle. I don't have problems with it. But if you are taking the time to rotate and balance a tire on a load range C on a crappy 3,500 pound axle, you're wasting your money and your time. It's not going to do anything, right? And you can prove it to yourself if you get in one of those crappy axles with crappy tires and you ride in the back, which is illegal. It is federal law that you should not do that. But if you do it in a parking lot or you do it in a field, you will feel the difference versus a higher quality axle with a higher quality tire.
This is true. We use Dexter Axle on what we build. They're probably the most expensive axle company that I can think of, probably the largest axle company in the US. Back in 2016 or 17, I can't remember. It's been 8 or 10 years ago. The cost of the axles continued to just up, 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 like there was no ceiling or no limit. And so we said, hey, let's look at this other brand of axle. It was a China made or a foreign made axle, not Dexter. A lot of manufacturers still use those to save on cost. That's what keeps their pricing down. But we only used those axles for about 3 to 6 months. It wasn't long. I had a client in Texas with a 3 horse bumper pull that arrived from point A to point B with only 3 tires. The entire spindle, the whole thing just came
Well,
off. And to our knowledge, no one got injured on that. Hopefully, the tire didn't go through someone's living room while they're watching, a Dateline or something. But yeah, thankfully, no one was hurt that we know of. But she didn't know. She didn't know. They don't know when it came off. Never did find it. Yeah, I do find in this industry, you get what you pay for. Cheap stuff is cheaper for a reason.
absolutely.
I don't know, and Rebecca probably has more insight on this than I do about driving schools or things that are available. I think maybe you even do some of that, but
There's literally the most, this is awful. And this really comes down to U-Haul and these kind of companies that have fought any regulations or training requirements. I mean, in most other countries, developed countries around the world, you have to get at least some kind of thing on your license that you've learned something about towing a vehicle behind your rig. We don't do that here in North America. And to me, that's sort of crazy because you're exactly right. People just jump in the trailer. They get their dad to train them. That is, it's horrific. Everybody that's on the road with you that's pulling a U-Haul has never done it before, and that will make you either go around them or turn on your dash cam, one or the other, so you can put it on YouTube.
Or both.
yeah, a 16-year-old in North Carolina that gets a license can go buy a horse trailer and hook it up to whatever tow vehicle that might have a hitch on it, regardless of whether it's safe or rated or underrated, and start driving with no training whatsoever. we had a client recently that purchased a 3 horse reverse load in a gooseneck and messaged us back. And she's like, hey, this thing is just, it's too big. I can't handle it. I liked it when I was pulling my smaller 2 horse or something like that. What can I do? And we told her, take a driving school,
Yep.
go down to the local college that teaches CDL, 18-wheeler stuff, learn what that does and, go through that program, ride with someone. Her husband, I believe, was qualified to teach her. I said, spend some time, take some trips, listen and learn. And then on the flip side, we had another owner that was Violet. Violet messages and she's like, hey, I got my trailer. So far, I haven't used it. I'm just practicing out in the field. I'm turning, I'm backing, I've got some cones set up. I'm going through tight spaces.
Oh,
And
she wasn't in a field. She was in an arena, like a dirt arena, like you would do, have horse eventing and things. She had
right, right,
literally
right.
pulled her truck and trailer into this dirt arena, sent pictures, and was just going around practicing. I mean, that's what you have
Good.
to do, honestly.
Yeah, she said then she started on her neighborhood, then she started going, real roads, and then only after she felt comfortable,
Yep.
she felt proficient with an understanding of her trailer. This particular client is an engineer, by the way, so she was
Yeah.
very detail oriented, and we love that. But only after she fully understood her truck, her trailer, knew her rig, knew her capabilities, had sharpened her skill, and had the confidence to go out and do it, that's when she started hauling her horses. So just because you have a driver's license, that isn't a hauling qualification. If you're upgrading from a Honda Accord uh, SUV type Honda vehicle or a Tahoe or something to a big F-350 dually, that doesn't mean just jump out of one vehicle and jump into the other and you're all of a sudden an expert. Oh, and then by the way, let's hook up a 4 horse living quarter with a 12-foot short wall behind it and figure it out, right? You don't master a rig with a live load by climbing in and just going. So get trained, practice, practice some more. You want to make safe decisions, you have to make safe decisions. That's where it starts. So practice before you ever load that life in there. The pre-haul decision, do I go or not go? The equa owner's decision before every trip. I would dare say most of us don't sit around before we go to an event and think, well, should I go to this today? Is it safe for me to do that? I think it's fine. If we look back at those 2 pilot stories that I showed you, they could have spent the night, right? They could have stopped. So the most important decision that you will make is sometimes is maybe I shouldn't go today. Maybe I should have changed the tires and paid more attention to that date code rather than having get there itis of, oh, I got to go to the show today and it'll be fine. I'll get it next time. You don't have a problem until you have a problem. Now, I mentioned that the FAA again loves those acronyms, the NW craft and I'm safe. And that's one, if both of those pilots had gone through, that they would probably still be alive today. You need to look at the weather. I'm going to call this a pre-haul checklist. You need to know what the weather conditions are. If there's any known delays, what are those? I mean, see if there's wrecks being reported and things like that, or construction. What is your stopping distance? How many people do you think actually know their stopping distance? How
Yeah.
many folks load your horses and set up a cone and start running 55 miles an hour past the cone, slam the brakes just as hard as you can without dragging the wheels and see how far it takes you to stop? I would dare say probably none of us have done that. So you need to know what your stopping distance is. I think we had approximately, and congratulations to you guys, almost 1,300 folks sign up for this 2-part series webinar. So thank you guys for trusting us to be able to provide that information and for giving us the opportunity. And on many of those, there were questions. What are your concerns? A lot of folks just said safety in general. There were tons of questions on there, but probably the most popular related to other drivers. I'm worried about other drivers. What can I do about the other drivers? Well, what you can do about the other drivers you can't fix stupid, okay? They're going to do whatever that they're going to do, but you can be proficient in handling your vehicle and handling your trailer, knowing your stopping distances. Don't try to go so fast. Go slower. I mean, if they need to, they'll go around you. And the other acronym that I like to use is I'm safe. And I think this would be very appropriate even for hauling horses. Have you had any illnesses for the eye? Have you been sick lately? Are you on medication? Did you take a Benadryl this morning? A little bit drowsy, right? Probably not safe because it can definitely affect your judgment. Are you stressed? Okay. Are you stressed? Are you uptight about something? When's the last time you had alcohol? Alcohol stays in your
Mhm.
system. If you get slammered the night before or really overdo it, you can have some residual from that the following morning. Fatigue, did you sleep good last night? And what about external factors and emotions? Did you and your husband have a fight a couple days ago? Is that on your mind? What are the external factors? Is it the get there itis? Look, I have to go to this show today regardless. Go through those acronyms. Think through for yourself. Is this, I mean, if you check all of those boxes off, go. If one of those, particularly like a medication or stress or, I mean, any of those, it's probably smart to just not do it. Any comments on that?
I will give the example. Last year, I was in Albuquerque and we were trying to get on a flight, and there was all kinds of problems. And the pilot was actually sitting in the area with everybody else.
Mhm.
And this went on for an hour or so. And he finally stood up with everybody that was getting ready to get on the plane with him. And he said, "Folks, I'm just going to tell you, I am getting fatigued and it is not safe. Delta is going to get you a hotel room this evening, and we will leave early in the morning." And we were all like, "Yay!" Because
Yeah.
it made sense. I mean, it was crazy.
No, and that's exactly what he should have done. On the flip side, I was boarding a plane not too long ago, and the pilot was standing in the walkway. I don't know what you call it, the little thing that comes up to you, with the motorized hallway that you walk down. And he's standing at the door, greeting everyone. Everybody get on. He says, I've done this. I've got 5,000 hours worth of flight time. I've done this thousands of times. You're in good hands. And I'm sitting there thinking, great. Mr. Mr. Complacency, who has done this 5,000 times, who probably skips some of the stuff on these really long checklists that you're supposed to go through and check. So I did not feel good. I promise. I did not feel good about flying with that guy. I'm like, that's a hazardous attitude for sure. He completely forgot about his pilot training and hazardous attitudes years ago. It'll happen. So I've picked on you guys for just a little bit about the Equa owner. Hopefully, I've made you at least think, and maybe maybe that thought process will help you at some point in the future. And I think it will daily. So the next decision, or decision one, if you will, is going to be the horse before the trailer, before the truck. It's going to start with the horse. Know your horse before you shop for a trailer. Your horse sets the requirements. I like this. I like this slide quote. We build trailers around horses. We don't ask horses to fit the trailer, and we don't ask the trailer to fit the tow vehicle either.
Yep.
So, know your size and breed. A 17 ham warm blood or draft is going to require a different measurement than what a pony will to comfortably fit. The temperament, calm and seasoned or reactive and green, the experience hauled for years or never loaded. And I would even caution on the experience because I've seen plenty of horses and plenty of folks reach back out to us that says, "Hey, we had one down in Florida a couple of years ago. The horse tried to jump through the drop down window during transit on travel." And she said, "I have no idea why. I've had this horse for 11 years, never had a problem." So again, you never have a problem until you have a problem. You just need to be prepared for it. Loading behaviors at the horse that you have to fight with every time, or do they walk on? Special needs. How many are you hauling? Do they fuss and fight like my kids do? And travel orientation. We'll discuss a little bit of that on some future slides. So the first decision, don't buy the trailer and then find a horse to fit it. That often, more often than not, does not work. This particular picture is Arnett, Mike. And Mike reached out to us. We're currently building a trailer for him, and I thought that was so cool. A 19 hand, 2,000 pound, just monster, beautiful, beautiful horse, and he's standing underneath the horse's head. So hauling this type of animal is a completely different decision than hauling a pony, right? The size, everything about the trailer flows from the horse in front of you, not the other way around. So you start with the horse, and then you get the right trailer to follow. And this is the actual drawing of the trailer we're currently building for him. It's just a bumper pull, 2-horse slant, reverse load, side entry ramp, or rear load. And a myth that we've placed up at the top, big horses don't fit in slant loads. Well, big horses fit just fine in the slant load if the stall is built to accommodate the size horse that you're hauling. Has nothing to do with the horse standing in the straight or the slant. We have clients with 17.3, 1,600 pound warm bloods that are hauling in slant reverse loads, and the horse can comfortably lower their head to cough and clear that dust and debris while traveling. So it can be done, but it's just not a one size fits all. I would argue that the majority of slant loads that are built in the US are primarily built to fit maybe a 15.2 guy. So without modification, it's certainly not going to work. Let's see, we'll move on from that. So the decision to the trailer, you pick the horse. We're not going to focus on the horse a whole lot. Now the box that has to protect it. We've had the privilege of going to Midwest Horse Fair up in Wisconsin. We did the equine fair back fall or spring, I can't remember, in Ohio. We were invited to be a guest speaker and do some seminars on horse trailer safety. And I always like to ask the question, quick show of hands, who in the room has a safe trailer? And there's always a lot of hands that go up. Yep. Allison, Joy, tons. 13, 14, 12. Yeah, so our counter's just going crazy. Thank you guys for doing that. Raise your hands. Everybody has a safe trailer, right? I think out of the 1,300 folks that registered for this, approximately 80% said just here to learn stuff. I'm not looking for a trailer at all, which is great because we're not trying to sell you one, but we do want to make you think a little bit and present some data to you that will hopefully help you make better decisions moving forward. So the quick show of hands, who has the safe trailer? And then I always ask, what makes it safe? Right? Why is it safe? It gets them from point A to point B, so it must be safe. I mean, duh, right? If you never had a problem, you had a horse that loved to ride like this guy, you never got in an accident, this setup would work just fine.
That was one of the first really viral YouTube videos. When that thing came out, it was crazy.
Brooke snagged that from something a while back, and I thought it was hilarious. So I've used it at a lot of our talks. It's just a nice little crowd buster. So if it gets them from point A to point B, it's got to be safe, right? Let's dive in, and I won't spend too much time on this, but I do want to really just present the data to you. So what's your trailer really made of? Safety versus sales hype and horse trailer construction. Everybody has the best trailer. Everybody. Boy, if I sell, I don't know, pick a brand. If I sell Adam trailers or B or Hawk or Sundowner or Four Star or Cimarron, it's a very fragmented market. And I'm the sales guy. Well, guess what? Ours is the best. Everybody's got the best trailer. So we're not going to listen to the hype. Okay. So the 4 decisions that are going to help decide the outcome, if the holes in the Swiss cheese align, and that happens to you on that particular day, these decisions will help it'll be a decision that stacks those odds in your favor rather than against you. So we're just going to quickly look at the frame and chassis, what it's made out of. What's the inside walls? What's the roof look like? The flooring. And I should probably add one more to this slide because I think it may be even more important than the materials would be the layout of the trailer, because that definitely affects horse and handler. Here he goes again, talking about airplanes. What is up with this guy? Shiny versus safe. So the first plane that I purchased was the Mooney up in the top corner. It was a 1965. When I started looking for airplanes, I really thought I wanted something much newer. I didn't want an old piece of junk, I thought. And with the latest and greatest, of course, I didn't have money for any of that. But the plane that I really thought I wanted was the one at the bottom, the Cirrus SR-22 with the parachute. The Buchanan family, and the slide that I showed you initially, those guys were flying a Cirrus SR-22 with the parachute. And so oftentimes I feel like we as humans, we can often get caught up in what's pretty, what's shiny, what looks good to us, but it may not be necessarily the safest. Now, one of the reasons that I went with this plane is it's one of the very few manufacturers. Al Mooney and his brother started it in the late 50s. It has a steel safety roll cage. And we want to keep the same thought process in mind for your horses. We want to surround your horses in some sort of protective cage, just like your automobile, right? If you get in a rollover situation and crashes, you're depending on that cab, that chassis to do its job and protect you. And another reason that I went with the Mooney is it's one of the few aircraft, if not the only that I know of, that doesn't use pulleys and cables, things like that. It's only steel rods, and the rods were big as my finger. So the skin on the outside, it's really just for covering, just like your horse trailer. That should not be the strength of your trailer, is the thin sheet metal. And yes, it says Mooney's one of the safest, fastest. We don't need to know that. But the point of it is that steel cage. Now, I have some brand names on this slide, and I can tell you in my almost 30 years of building trailers, we don't really discuss brands. I've certainly never, what do you call that, disparaged, bashed
Yeah.
other brands of trailers. We don't do that. And the fact that I have some examples up here for you guys, don't go and tell your neighbor, well, this guy just said that blank, blank, and blank was a piece of junk and theirs was the best, because that's absolutely not what we're saying. I'm simply showing you some data to make you think. Okay. So we're looking at this frame is a safety cage. And I think before I move on to that, one thing Rebecca and I would probably agree on is the only trailer that we may bash would be European made Brender up. Do you agree with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Feel free. I've been bashing them for years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you have one of those, I mean, go out, take the sledgehammer, beat it down into a pile and put it somewhere and go scrap it. But otherwise, please don't go sell your trailer because I've said it was a piece of junk, because that's not the case. Okay. So in a crash or rollover, you want a strong frame that bends instead of breaking. Let's say that again. You want a frame that will bend and not break. That safety cage around your horses. So that's going to prevent your horse from being ejected. Later in this slide, we're going to listen to a very short video from Amy down in Sarasota, Florida, that actually had an accident, rollover in a trailer that we built. We've got the pictures of it. You'll be able to hear her story on that and how it turned out. You want a frame that yields and absorbs energy. You don't necessarily, we don't want one that's brittle or tends to crack or tear or splinter. You'd like to have a frame that has a true fatigue limit, not something that's just going to snap and doesn't really have that limit. The frame that we use, or the material, we could call it steel. I don't like to use the word steel because folks associate steel with, one, it's heavy, two, it's going to rust. What we make does neither of those. we're not the only company that builds with that technology. We market it as Z-frame, but there are other manufacturers in the US that use similar technologies, and we do list those out in our book. So I don't sell the books, by the way. I'm not trying to sell you a book. We give those for free, and at the end, you can sign up if you like. So if you're interested in more of that information, you can just get it straight from the book. But the material that we use for the frame itself, it has a yield strength 55,000 psi per square inch. Now, I don't really know what that means. Rebecca might know, but it sounds real good. The main thing to look at the examples, and I chose these three brands because I feel like, particularly Cimarron, Four Star, I feel like those are well-built aluminum trailers. I really do, compared to some other brands that are out there, and there's a lot of different ones, and the frame and the alloy material make a difference on that. They'll use a T6 or a 6061, things like that. But
Mhm.
all of those max out with that yield strength of 35,000 psi. So right out of the gate, we have manufacturers, not just us, but several manufacturers in the industry that produce trailers built with frames that are going to have, what is that, a good 50% more tensile or yield strength than what some of the shiny, pretty, well-known brand name trailers have. Something to think about. The yield strength is what resists permanent deformation, the number that matters in that crash or when that rig rolls. Let's move on. Just a picture we
I have
grabbed from the
I have some questions if you want me to throw them in real quick.
jump on it. Let me,
Yeah,
is our microphones, I'll turn my audio
oh,
off.
you're good. So just these are I think these are pretty relevant. One person said, "Are there crash tests for horse trailers like regulated like in cars?" And the
No.
answer to that is no.
Absolutely not. There is not. Dr. Sharon Krieger and I have been working together for 20 something years, and we only found one manufacturer in New Zealand back in the 1970s that did any crash testing at all.
Wow.
And then my second ex-husband, I'm married to the third one, but my second ex-husband, he and I got a trailer donated and we took it to the Michelin test track and cut it loose at 65 miles an hour four times.
Mhm.
And we still couldn't get it to flip because it was the Michelin test track. And so that's the only other crash testing that I'm aware of. It's not done in the industry and it's not required. And what Brad's talking about as far as the frames, that is there's no requirements anywhere on how to build a frame or a bulkhead or the chassis of your trailers. There's no requirements for that. So it literally comes down to what the manufacturer wants to do.
There is zilch, for lack of a better term, zilch oversight in horse trailer manufacturing. We have the National Association of Trailer Manufacturers, NATM, and they recently combined with the Trailer Dealers Association, I think, and they help out with the federal guidelines as far as the DOT tape and the number of lights and how many brakes are required and things like that. No one comes to your factory and says, "Oh, well, you're only using, we don't have to submit our plans to NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration. We don't have to give them a floor plan and have an engineer go through and say, well, this will not survive in this situation and has to be bigger." You could literally go in your backyard if you know how to weld, go down to the steel shop, buy some stuff, put it together, get a VIN thrown on it, and there's your horse trailer. So
Yep.
that is the regulation in the industry currently. You got another question?
Yeah, someone else says define safe. There's no 100% guarantees when trailering. It can depend on other vehicles on the road and what they're doing around you too.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah, that is all true. Define safe. Define safe.
Define
I,
safe.
I think the material that we're going over today, we're going to try to help figure out just how to make better decisions, which results in a safer outcome. And I think that's all you can do. I mean, if you start out with the tow vehicle that's too small, if you start out when you're, hammered halfway from the night before, the hitch is halfway rusted out already on your vehicle, the trailer's too big for the truck, the horse doesn't fit well, you've got a problem. I mean, when you start out with all of those bad decisions, pick one, you're really going down that chain of events to where at some point you may get by with it many, many times, but at some point that cheese, the holes in the cheese will align and that decision will bite you. So I think, yeah, we just want to look at ourselves, look at our skills, understand our rigs, understand our trailers, sharpen our proficiency in hauling, and put all of that together. And that thought process and those decisions is what's going to make your load and your trips more safe. Any more questions you got on that?
We have one more. I can go ahead and say it. Maybe you can just tell me if we're going to get to it. But if a trailer with a rear ramp gets rear-ended and the ramp won't open, how do you get the horses out? Will the frame be tweaked enough that a side ramp won't open?
So today we're covering mostly how to prevent the accident. And if it does happen, what's going to provide potentially the better outcome. And then in our part two series that Rebecca's going to be piloting the controls on that. There goes that pilot thing again. I think it's the headset. It just makes me feel like I'm in the plane or something. But Rebecca's going to be driving that, and we'll definitely cover what happens when the crash occurs and how to handle it. But go ahead and jump in on that question if you'd like, Rebecca, on the ramp.
Absolutely depends on many factors, but we always encourage people to have a second way out for your horses. That also means that you've got to have swing gates and barriers that are easily removable. So, if you can't get them out, you've got to be able to pull some pins, pull some gates out to be able to access where the animals are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really look forward to the next webinar at the end of August. Okay, looking at this crash, I don't know what occurred. I have no idea the details around it, but if you will think back to the chart that we showed earlier, the 35,000 number versus the 55. So there are variations in strength among manufacturers, but there's certain properties of aluminum that no manufacturer can really control. And that's where you see the tearing, the ripping, the splintering, the sharp edges. And it's simply because in a high stress situation, aluminum doesn't, a piece of steel, maybe, I don't know, if I had a piece of steel, it would bend and bend and bend and bend, and then eventually it would just kind of go down. Whereas the aluminum doesn't move a whole lot. It's a very brittle type material when you make it thick enough. And what happens is once it hits that high stress environment, it'll actually just snap and break. And so that's what you're seeing here. The decision nobody thinks through. Oh, I love this slide. Since we're talking about frames and chassis and types of material that directly affects the weight of the trailer. And if you reach out to us or I'm doing a video call with you and you say, I'm really looking for a trailer that's lightweight, my forehead's probably going to wrinkle like that because, in my opinion, it's one of the most backward things that I hear. Less weight means less material. Less material means less structure. And that is less between your horse and the road. There are not any secrets in horse trailer manufacturing. So unless you are looking at a trailer or you have a trailer that is built with some advanced rocket ship, maybe some Elon Musk aerospace type 3D carbon fiber composite or something like that, then otherwise you're just buying, the same thing that everybody else does. And if Brad's trailer weighs 3,000 pounds and Caleb's trailer weighs 2,700, and they're identical floor plans, identical measurements, identical layouts, it doesn't mean that Caleb knew something Brad didn't. It means he
Oh,
just,
yeah, it does. Yeah, no, I'm
yeah,
just kidding. I'm just
it
kidding.
means that Caleb ordered thinner material. You can't see the thickness of it. A 1x2 tube is a 1x2 tube, so you can't see how thick it is. And Caleb did that, one, to save weight so he could advertise it lightweight, and two, it keeps his costs down, which is a big
Yep.
factor of a lot of manufacturers.
Yeah, and I think that also plays back into the question on regulations that there are none. So I mean, you manufacturers can literally, and you would never know it because you can't see the inside of the trailer unless you got a trailer with not insulated walls. But even then, you can't see the thickness of the tubing on the from the inside. And so like there's no regulation to know what you're actually purchasing in a situation like that. So that's how manufacturers can do those things for cost savings and stuff.
And that's why some manufacturers really don't like what Rebecca says.
And that's okay. That's okay. None of us like to be told that we might be wrong about something. In
Yeah.
fact, I've I've actually never been wrong my entire life. I thought I was wrong one time, but I was wrong about that. So I don't know where I get
I
this
think
stuff.
I think your comment down there is, when we're talking about weight, a lot of people are trying to hitch it to their SUV. They're trying to hitch it to a smaller vehicle. And I just tell people, if you value your horse, you need to buy a truck, and it probably needs to be a dually. Under most conditions, it probably needs to be a dually.
Right.
And people don't want to hear that from me, but I just tell them, that's the truth. And if you look at the weight ratings, if you look at the matching of your vehicle with the trailer, I absolutely agree. It looking for something lightweight starts sounding like I'm looking for a Brender up, which is that European-made trailer I was talking about, which you can move around by yourself.
That's
But
right.
let me tell you, when I see the wrecks of what happens to those trailers, it's horrific.
Yeah, they literally exploded. I don't know the weight of a Brenda up. I'm gonna guess what 15, 1,800 pounds on a little
Yeah,
two
about
horse.
1,800 pounds. Yep.
Yeah, two horse straight load. So you have an 1,800 pound vehicle. That's what a horse trailer is. And you have another 2,000 plus pounds, maybe 2,200 with tack or 25, depending on the size of your horse. So you're hauling 2,500 pounds of weight in a vehicle that only weighs 1,800 pounds.
Yep.
That doesn't, I mean, just that doesn't make any sense. What's going to be safer if that trailer gets smacked in the side and it's an 1,800 pound trailer hauling 2,500 pounds of weight? Or what if that same 2,500 pounds of weight was being hauled in a 10,000 pound trailer? Which do you think the outcome is going to be better? Less weight is less safe. There's no other way to put that. Less weight is less safe. Just means less material. And I love the thing that we stuck on the side there. Which would you rather be in if somebody runs into you, a Volkswagen Beetle or an F-350
Well,
dually?
yeah, somebody just said, so are we going back to steel trailer combos? Let you comment on that.
Steel trailer combos.
Combos, I guess like a stock combo or something. I'm not sure, but
Uh,
I wouldn't
I
say
think
no.
they're asking something to the effect of, are we going to go to steel frames with aluminum on them, or are we going to all aluminum? I don't think a lot of people realize that even your aluminum trailers still have a lot of steel in them, or
yeah,
should.
that's true. And my preference would be a steel frame any day of the week, just like the airplane.
Yep.
And just like the tensile ratings that we showed, that's the reason for that. Again, when we use the word steel, we we tend to think, oh, it's heavy and it's going to rust. Well, we're not in the 1980s anymore or the 70s. When trailers were built back in the 70s, the guys, they took a piece of sheet metal, some tubing, they welded it together, they threw some paint on it. And in a few years, the sheets had rusted through the sides. They used tongue and groove flooring on the boards so no water can't escape. The boards started rotting out. And then right out of the gate, steel trailers rust, they don't hold up, and the floors rot out if it's a wood floor. Okay, that's true back then. And then you had these guys like Rodney Culp. I don't know if you've ever met Rodney before, Rebecca. He's a really cool guy, but he and his dad started Featherlight back in the 80s. Very smart guy. And he later went on to start Exus. But when Featherlight and those companies came along, there was a huge difference in cost between aluminum and steel. Steel was here, aluminum was way up there. And just the cost difference itself sort of gives us the mentality, well, it costs a lot more, so it's premium and it must be better. And that's really where the aluminum market started, to my knowledge, unless you know something different. But
I agree.
along in that
And it
time
and
period,
it looked pretty.
It
Because you
looked
could
pretty.
you could burnish it and
Yep.
it looked bright and pretty.
And let me just tell you, everybody and their brother has jumped on that bandwagon since Rodney and his dad started building the Featherlight. The next guy started doing aluminum. The next guy or gal, whomever, started doing aluminum. And yeah, so, that's where we are today. I think it would be problematic for a majority of manufacturers to retool their shops to build a steel frame trailer today, which is a lot of why they don't do it. They got to use some sort of material that's not going to rust out, some technologies, change the way that they build things, have a paint booth, to do some of that. But there are a lot of manufacturers that build a nice steel frame and are able to do that without the rust factor to go along with it. And that's really what we're looking for. So you get the safety of steel and sort of the longevity of the aluminum, if you will. Great question. All right, what's next on here? Mike and Shelley, Chester, South Carolina. Are you good, Rebecca? I know we're rolling on time here. I don't
Oh,
want to.
you're doing fine. Yep.
All right, all right. I'm going to play just a short portion of this, not very long, but I want Rebecca, you particularly to listen in on what Mike says.
I will say something real quick, just for the folks that are on here. If you do need to leave, we are recording, and we will send that out. I've had a few of those questions come through, so if you do have to leave, I know people got things to do. We are recording this, and we're going to send it out via email afterwards. So feel free to hop off if you need to.
Yeah, we try to do our webinars no more than an hour, and we're already past that today, and we'll go well past it. But the topic is so important. We have so much material to cover. So yeah, just catch the recording and watch it bits and pieces at your convenience.
So I'm involved in the fire service. I've been a volunteer firefighter. I had an opportunity to go to a technical large animal rescue class. And it was I think a 3-day class, and it went over everything about rescuing animals, and part of that was horse trailer rescues.
Yeah.
Right.
And they started showing slides of horses falling through the floor of trailers, horses, like the trailers falling apart when they get into a wreck. And the instructor kept going, and she's a well-known national instructor. She's like, if you are in an aluminum trailer, she's like, you are taking your horse's life in your hands. And I'm like in the class going,
Looked at a lot.
Who was that national
That's not exactly what I said, but yes, they
Was
got
that-
the point.
Did you do the class? Was that you that taught the class?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know that I ever knew that I certainly didn't know that when we were doing the interview with
It
Mike.
was never confirmed, but we afterwards, and then getting to know you, we've kind of come to the assumption that it was you.
Or like, I bet it was Rebecca that taught that class. But yeah, we did this little thing called a ride along series where we'd hop in the plane, we'd fly down to a customer, we'd just go hang out with them and have a nice conversation and post that on our website. So it's a really good content if you haven't watched some of those. Mike and Shelley's a good one. The firefighter, and after he saw or listened and sat in on your presentation, we sold him a very nice living quarter trailer. So thank you. Thank you. We gotta send you a commission for that. All right. All right. Moving on from the frame and the chassis. Now let's talk about the interior sheets. And I'll roll through this pretty quickly for time's sake. What are your interior horse walls made of? And really, why the heck does it even matter? So I'll tell you quickly, the stuff that we use is the same material that's in the bed of the pickup truck. Ford, maybe not Ford now, but Chevy and Dodge, I think in particular, except we don't buy it with the ridges in it. We buy it in a flat sheet. And these photos came to us. This is one of our trailers, one of our clients. In the last 6 months, she sent those over. Her horse colicked. And you can see there was a lot going on in there. It was a 2-horse straight load, padding was ripped, the windows, but look at the white portion at the top. How much damage was done there? Not a tremendous amount. It's mostly scratches, but you can see even like beside this window, that's a really high kick. I mean, a hoof got all the way up there. It's not just the kick down at the bottom area, it's around the walls. And so when your horse panics, those walls are what become that first line of defense for you. And again, we're not the only company that builds using similar technology. There are many out there. So check it out in the book and you can look at other brands and see what that is. Did you want to say something, Rebecca?
I will send you a picture that I have of a manufacturer's trailer that does not use those. And the horse one kick and it went through that rubber and through the wall. So I will make sure that I send that to you.
It went through the rubber at the
And the
bottom,
wall.
at the
The
bottom.
rubber and the wall. But it
So,
went through
so
the wall.
the
Yep.
kick lining portion itself, not the upper wall, but even the lower.
Yes.
Holy cow.
I'll
Yeah.
make sure I send
That
it
was
to
a
you.
strong kick.
Yeah. Anyway, you could see with the thrashing that was going on in this trailer. The trailer did its job very well. So that is your first line of defense. Now, again, we've got another chart here. First time I ever used these charts, but I think it's important because if we look at the wall skin, that's often what it's referred to in our industry is the skin or the sheet metal. And I'm talking about the part that is above the kick lining. Okay. So from the bottom wall lining up to the ceiling, what that is, we coin it as Galvalite. That's that pickup bed truck material. There's some other companies that use that. But look at the number. The braking strength per linear inch, 3,200 pounds. I don't really know what that means. But when I pull the specs from their website, okay, this is what's shown on Cimarron, 4-star, Featherlight. I use those because I think they're really good companies and really good brands of trailers. And the thicknesses that they use, the .050 aluminum and the .040, it has a braking strength of 1,650 pounds. We're at 32. They're at 1,650. We're double, right? Almost double on those sheets, which means the trailer itself, if we didn't put any sheets on the outside of the trailer, no exterior skin, and we simply hauled the horse with the interior wall lining, it would be just as strong as what some of those other built trailers are, right? Yes. So there's a tremendous amount of difference. What you surround your horse with and that safety cage makes a huge difference as far as making your load safer when something goes wrong. Okay, let's move on. The double wall and insulated design. This is just sort of an FYI. I'm sure you're probably aware of this, but I always like to cover it. So I actually went through a period in 2009 and 10, I think, where we built as a manufacturer all aluminum trailers. We jumped on the same bandwagon as everybody else. We thought that's the route that we wanted to go. I only built a handful and quickly realized that was not where we wanted to be. But some properties that I learned about aluminum, I really learned a lot how it's made and the extrusions. It's a fun process to just understand how it all goes together. But it's a fantastic conductor of heat, right? We did a video. I should have put it on here where we walked out on our lot in Kinston, North Carolina, out in the summertime and put a digital thermometer on the roof on this. I call it the mill finish. That's the shiny stuff right here. Mill finish aluminum roof. It got up to 140 some degrees. It was so hot, you couldn't put your hand on it. And I really wanted to jump on top and fry an egg, but we didn't have any eggs with us that day. I should have done it. We kept the camera rolling, and that video is on our website. We kept the camera rolling, walked into another trailer with an insulated roof, and it was just like night and day. So first thing you can do to make your horse more comfortable, right? A comfortable horse, I think, is a safer horse. I think most folks would agree with that. To make your horse more comfortable, don't bake your horse. What you surround the horse with matters. So if you walk in your current trailer and you look up and you can see the shiny stuff with the ribs like that, go to a trailer shop, pay the guys or the gals there to add some insulation and then put another sheet over the top of that. It will help tremendously. You could also paint the top of the roof white. That will also help. Same thing with the sidewall. Now, Rebecca just said that this black part at the bottom, that's usually where the really thick piece, maybe a .090 thickness metal compared to the 050 material, almost twice as thick, lives at the bottom. And she says she's got a picture where a horse actually kicked through that. Okay, well, this colicking horse photo that we just looked at, what would have happened had that horse kicked where these X's are? And what that is, if you walk in this trailer and you put your hand against the wall, that's the inner wall and the outer wall. That's it. There's nothing else. You could literally walk up with a small hammer and pop it and knock a hole in it. So again, if you see that in your trailer, I would recommend adding some insulation, and I would recommend going and putting another sheet on the inside of your trailer. That will help your horse haul more comfortably. And if you have a problem, it will stack the odds in your favor of having a better outcome.
We always tell people you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a small thermometer that you put in the trailer, and the receiver is in your truck. And you can actually drive down the road and see what the temperature is in your trailer. I wouldn't put it on the roof because that's ridiculous. I would put it somewhere around the center of the horse's mass. And you can actually, when you stop at a light and the sun's beating down on it and you've got the heat from the road, you can actually watch the temperature rise. And then you start moving again, you get a little ventilation in the trailer, you can see it change. It'll tell you what your trailer actually has as far as the heat. I mean, most of those things are a little weather thing, and you can get the humidity as well as the heat.
We got to start pushing that. I love that.
They're like
a great
18
idea.
bucks.
Yeah, probably like something
The
little thing we've
problem
got
is,
in our, got in our office.
the problem is finding a place where the horse can't mess with it. That's the problem.
Great insight. Yes. Buy a thermometer. I like that. Everybody should have one, and then you'll know what's going on. If it's not comfortable temperature wise for you, it's not comfortable temperature wise for your horse. So there are solutions for it. And while the thought is on my brain, someone mentioned a stock side or an open side earlier. We actually don't build those. We have a lot of folks who come to us and they'll say, hey, I want an open side trailer, not the one that's enclosed because we live in Florida or Texas and it's hot, right? So I'm thinking I can get more airflow if the sides are open. And again, it has less to do with the number of windows and the size of the windows in your trailer, and more to do with what you are surrounding your horse with material wise. That's going to make the biggest difference of anything. All right, so make sure your trailer is insulated. I'm going to jump the floors, a slide on that, and we'll move on. True story, I had a client down in Georgia back in the day that had a feather light. Nothing against those guys. These pictures are the actual floor of that trailer, the one to the left. And it was only 6 years old. I traded for it sight unseen, other than a few pictures that she had sent. She ordered a new trailer. We delivered the new one, brought the old one back to the factory. We washed it and got inside, started doing videos, and I pull the mat back, and that's what I see. Okay. I could see the ground. It had holes in it. So that's an extruded aluminum flooring. It's not something that you can just pop out and pop a new floor in. That is actually it's a weight bearing portion of the trailer, a structural part. And the person that traded that trailer into us, I don't think she had a clue. I don't think she had ever pulled those mats back and looked underneath because she thought it's an aluminum and it doesn't rust, right? Aluminum does rust. It'll oxidize. Steel bleeds the nasty red stuff. Aluminum will bleed the whiter oxidation, but the end result would be the same. So remember the properties that we mentioned about aluminum. It's a great conductor of heat. In fact, I would argue it transfers more heat, more noise, more vibration back to horses' feet and legs than any material I can think of on planet Earth. Yet we put that in the floor of almost every trailer that's running, 18 inches off the black hot asphalt. So I would much rather see a 2x8 pressure treated pine wood floor with a mat on top, less heat, less noise, less vibration. And again, we say, oh my gosh, we don't want a wood floor because it's going to rot out. first wood floor I did was in 1997, serial number 001, and it still has the original floor in it. So that's actually not true. And there's Rumber. We don't make that. It's made from recycled tires. Google it, rumber.com. It's like lumber with an R. And Rumber's actually, it's in a lot of trailers that we build. Folks will order that.
I had
Yep.
a pop-up Jamethio, one of our great customers, who I
Hey, Jamaica.
believe
Yeah.
Dr. or Rebecca, you've met out in the wilderness. She said she had a thermometer in her trailer and went on a summer trail ride. It was 120 in the trailer after sitting in the sun for 6 hours. She opened it all up while we untacked, turned the fans on. In 10 minutes, it dropped to 85.
Yep.
While sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
While sitting.
Yep. Insulated. We use a fiberglass roof. Fiberglass is a fantastic insulator. It's what's in the walls of your house, and it works great on horse trailers. So, regardless of what you have, insulate it. Put some insulation in it. Life will be better. When we're discussing flooring, and I don't want to harp too much on this, but I do think it's important. There are a lot of companies out there that offer coated floorings, spray on, beautiful colors. They look fantastic. My concern with that has always been, in fact, we've written some articles on it on our website and taken some flack from it because they didn't like what I had to say. But I'm like, get your crap together. If you don't like it, do something, improve. And the problem with the coated floorings or the spray on is it's only as strong as the bond that holds that together, how well the floor was cleaned or prepped with the acid wash before they coated it, and then the strength of the coating. What's going to happen to that over the next 15 years when you get a horse that paws and they actually can crack through that, and then you get the urea and the horse urine that runs underneath that? You could literally have oxidation underneath your beautifully coated floor where the horse
I
could
have no
fall.
idea.
Yep, you
Yep.
would never know it. Two things. So this came from Facebook, the thing to the right. It says, has anyone had issues with the blank rubber floor? I bought a brand new trailer with one ride, 2 miles. The floor is falling apart. My horse did paw, but only pulling into the home. He's never pawed enough to destroy the mats. The dealership's working with me, fixing the issue with a patch. Okay. But I've lost confidence in the floor. I can't return the trailer. Yeah, sorry, it's yours. They won't do anything about it. And I'm not suing them, as the fix would be less than the attorney. The dealership recommended a pawl strip, which is not cheap, and I'm trying to get a quote on mats, just curious. So, yeah, those things do happen. When we were in Wisconsin, we went and talked to, it was a 4-star guy, Caleb. Yes, it was a 4-star dealer. He's on the
Yep.
lot, had a worm flooring. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, dude, how does this flooring hold up? And he said, it does a really good job. I said, what, can a horse paw through it? Do you have instances where the coating actually gets deteriorated? And he said, yeah, it does. When that happens, you just bring it back to the dealership and we have to reseal it and we patch it and we fix it. And I said, I'm thinking, well, what happens to that horse urine and the moisture that gets trapped in between those two areas? So anyway, I'll hush about coatings. If you want a safer trailer, something that, again, is going to check all of those boxes for years down the road, I feel like making a choice to get a coated floor is just something that is stacking the odds against you rather than for you. So that's all I have to say about that. As far as Gump would say, oh, I didn't even know that was a video there. Okay, let's jump to layout and start to wrap this webinar up. Layout matters. What do you pull? Straight, slant, reverse, bumper, goose. I mean, there's so much out there. J Methio, I think, is a 2-horse bumper reverse, right? We do a lot of reverse loads on our end. Probably 80% of our sales are reverse. Rebecca, I'm sure, has a lot of insight on that. Heck, she has a dang PhD in horse physiology, so she knows more than what I could have even forgotten there. But anyway, we'll go on through layout and then we'll get some thoughts for her. So the wrong layout doesn't just endanger the horse, it endangers you. This is true. A horse that won't load, bought in a trailer that traps it, hurts the handler too. Rear tack, you have to squeeze past, puts your body in the danger zone. I'm going to talk about that one. Horses' temperament, trailers lay out together, decide whether you get hurt, loading, unloading, or in an emergency. What about that panicky horse when you open the doors? Do you have space to get the heck out of the way to protect yourself? It's another hole in the cheese. It's part of the stack, and it also includes you. So it's not just your horse, it also includes you. This is Keely Jones up in Culpeper, Virginia. We did a ride along with her and just a very short video loading here. Where did we go?
Good boy. Good boy. Yep, perfect. Good boy. Yep, awesome.
So I like this layout, how the entire back of the trailer is open and available for loading and unloading, right? It's not claustrophobic. She has a divider between her and the horse, which works great, particularly when you get ready to unload, because when you open the doors up, guess what? A lot of times the horse is ready to come out. They've been riding for a while. So it gives you opportunity to have some protection between you and the horse until you get them calmed down. Listen to her comment at the
Boy,
end.
buddy. Yeah. Usually that would have taken like an hour.
Wow. She said usually that would have taken like an hour. She came to us with a difficult loader, some trauma in the past from trailering, I'm not sure. And she crossed her fingers in hopes that a reverse load configuration with a more open and inviting design would help her problematic loader. And it absolutely did. And we hear those same stories all the time from folks. And if you want to look at that video, I think it's a 48-minute interview. So it's really good. Just go to doubledtrailers.com and horse trailer videos. It's on the nav menu.
Good boy.
And then this is the actual layout that she has. It's very similar to the one we're building for the draft horse. Not a lot of difference. Has the rear tack, which we are going to discuss. But notice in her video, there was no rear tack. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. She has a rear tack. It's a swing out, and we'll talk about it. One more layout that has been very popular, I like, and it's a double side ramp. So you have independent access to all three horses. A lot of folks, when they buy a 3-horse, particularly if it's a slant load, they'll have some hesitation because you generally lose your access to your center horse if you have to offload in an emergency situation. It's really nice to have that independent access. You don't have to move 1 or 2 horses out of the way just to get to the other guy. And in this configuration, you have an escape door for the handler here, escape door for the handler here, double side ramp on this side. The thing's 8 feet long, and the entire back of the trailer is open. So a lot of opportunity to safely load and unload your horse. Layouts matter. I don't know who built this. We were in, again, I keep saying Wisconsin because it was the most recent one we did at the Midwest Horse Fair. And I showed this same slide on the screen. And someone in the audience raised their hand and said, and I don't remember the brand, but she said, the such and such dealer out there has this identical layout with them. And we went and looked at it afterwards, and sure enough, it did. Layout matters, guys. First of all, this is a solid rear tack. That means you cannot load or unload your horses out of the back end of the trailer. Definite no-no. You got a lot of stuff to carry, not my problem. You want a safer trailer, you need to figure out what to do with your tack other than closing off the entire back end of the trailer. How do you load horses? I wish I could do an arrow or something, but we'll use my cursor. So horse number 1, we're going to assume that your horses are not the best loaders and you're going to have to lead them in because more than likely, if you stay on horses long enough, every single one that you've got may not just walk right in the trailer happily. So if you have to walk in, these partitions will swing around to the back, just like that's shown. You'll bring the horse up to the front. I like this. You can tie your horse off. You can go through the escape door and get out of the way. Okay, let's go back around. Let's grab horse number 2. This is a 4-horse. Horse number 2 comes in. Dividers are pushed out of the way. You're going to come up. Oh, well, first of all, there's a manger here. My thoughts on mangers. I've built mangers over the years. Been a 15 years probably since I've done a manger. I quit doing them. They don't allow the horse to lower their heads, right? To
Exactly.
cough, clear that dust and debris. I've had horses try to climb up in the manger. Well, I've had a manger all my life. I've never had any problems. Good for you. You won't have any until you have a problem one day. So,
Amen.
and then the other problem, and I'll get to that on the unload. So you've got to reach over this manger to tie off the horse. If you plan to tie, close the gate. All right. Repeat the same thing for horse number 3. Horse number 4, you're walking in with your 1,200-pound horse right there. This is you, where that cursor is. Where the heck are you going to go? Well, let me tell you, you're going to slither beside this fixed wall and hope your 1,200-pound guy doesn't step on your 130 to 150-pound body and mash you. Well, my horse is calm and it would never do that. I mean, maybe. When you get ready to unload these horses, let's look at that really quickly. This first guy, you don't have a way. Again, you've got to slither in if you want to get the head. Remember the Keeley video? She's just standing at the back of the trailer, rubbing her horse, getting him nice and happy before she ever opens a divider. Not this guy. First thing he's got to do is back out. You got to put him in reverse. And I don't know how you're going to get him there to do it, but let's just say he's a great backer. You open the door and he just walks down gently and backs right out. Life is good. The second horse, you swing that divider around, you walk in, untie the head. With this head partition and the manger, there's not enough room for your horse generally to spin around and walk out. So this horse too also has to be finagled and try to back out of that ramp. And then horse number 3, horse number 4, you figure it out on how you get them in and out of there. But bottom line, and you can quote Brad on this, I think this is a bonehead layout altogether. It's one of the most unsafe layouts that I have seen, but it's something that we see often, particularly in living quarters, because in a living quarter customer, when a client comes to us, they're generally super excited about the color of the cabinet, the size of the shower. I want a fireplace, the television. I want the big refrigerator. And we're just like, no.
What about your horse?
We build trailers for horses, not for humans. All that pretty stuff in the front, anybody can do that. Anybody can do it. Every single brand in the United States that builds living quarters can make them pretty, I promise you. So let's design trailers for horse and handler safety. And then the living quarters can be whatever the living quarters is. Any thoughts on any of that, Rebecca? I've rambled a lot.
No, absolutely. I tell people if you're paying more attention to what's in the living quarters, I know something about you,
Yeah,
and I know
that's
something
right.
about your horses.
All right. I think this is the last slide on the trailers, and I call this the birth canal rear tack, the one to the left. Again, when Rodney and his dad started building Featherlight back in the 80s, they did this collapsible rear tack wall. And I hate to keep using the term, but everybody and their brother pretty much copied that. And most manufacturers build them very similar. This is maybe a wider trailer. I think it's an 80 wide, but horses don't necessarily like to load in these narrow doorways, right? Horses were designed by God to roam in free open pastures, not to be crammed into these small trailers with the hot roofs and all that. Well, then folks will say, okay, well, I have the swing out saddle racks and my walls will collapse. So that's great. You can get those out of the way with your dangerous butt strap or butt bar. But have you ever walked up to a trailer to load with the horse in one hand, who's pulling back, having a bad day, and then all of a sudden you've got to figure out how to collapse your rear tack? I've seen rear tack compartments. There's stuff everywhere. It's in the floor. There's poopers, scoopers, and buckets and shavings, and it's a nightmare. We had a client, 1999. Again, a lot of the regulations that we have today and vehicles and airplanes and everything else evolved from an accident. Same thing with us. A client in 1999, she bought a three-horse slant bumper or goose. I think it was a gooseneck stock side, had the open slats on it, no windows. It had the rear tack, the birth canal, just like the one to the left. That's the way we used to build them, right? Same as everybody and their brother. Brad did the same thing. She had good loaders. Horse number one, horse number two, they all walked in. Horse number three, she closed off the doors, walked around to the side of the trailer, stuck her arm through the stock side slat to tie off the head. He reared back and it snapped her arm, broke it. And she called us up on the phone and she said, "Look, guys, I just broke my arm. You need to figure out how to get the bleep, 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 bleep saddle compartment out of the way because it is dangerous." And my dad at the time, pretty smart guy, he looked at it and he says, "Why don't we just build the tack in a box," which is what that is, "and mount it to the back door? And then when you open the door, the whole room comes out with it. So you have the entire back of the trailer open and available for loading and unloading. Oh, and by the way, let's put an extra divider in there. Most three-horse trailers only have two dividers. Well, the back horse, they'll do a butt strap or something. Put another divider in there." So we've been doing this since 1999. We call it the safe tack, and it's very safe for horse. It's very safe for handler. If you have a conventional style rear tack like this, my recommendation would be to move the saddles up to the front tack area, dressing room, and keep those walls collapsed. If you want to be safe, again, that's a decision that you can make that will stack the odds in your favor if the holes in that Swiss cheese line up and your horse is having a bad day. So that's my advice for what it's worth on that.
Here's a couple questions on that. Somebody said my horses don't like loading in a trailer with a rear tack. Mine is fixed. Never again. What do you do in a situation that if you have a fixed rear tack instead of a collapsible?
Go to a weld shop and have them take a plasma cutter and just cut it right out for you, or trade trailers. Get a different trailer. I
Yep,
mean,
cut it
those,
out.
yeah, cut it out. Just take a plasma cutter and it'll be nice and clean and it can cut it out for you. Grind off the sharp
And
edges.
and and then make sure that the structural integrity of the back end of that trailer is not compromised by that, because in some trailers, not all, that bar is fixed and that's actually part of the structural integrity. So you may have to compromise for some of those things.
Yeah, they'll use the wall of the tack to close the doors against it, and that's kind of what seals and latches the door and everything else. So, just you could email us a picture of that of your trailer if you like. I'd love to take a look at it, and we can make some recommendations to you. All right, trailer layout. Why does it matter? It impacts the horse fatigue and stress, affects handler safety, loading and unloading, and emergency exits can be life-saving. Says validated in Equifirst, Aid USA's national training. I'm on their board of directors. We sort of help them update their material, and they do some classes on safe trailering practices. So might be something to check out there. The tow vehicle. It's our last decision. This is the shortest slide. Everybody's getting tired. The horse chose the trailer. The trailer chooses the truck, not the other way around. Horse chose the trailer. Trailer chooses the truck, not the other way around. What are you towing with? When I wrote the book, there's so many terms, and I've read that stuff. They got the GV, the GC, the GA, and there's just so many Gs. I don't know what they all mean. It's very confusing. And being just a country boy from North Carolina, I broke this stuff down and I said, I think we can do a better job of explaining this. There's only two things, two numbers that you need to be concerned with to at least ensure you have an adequately rated tow vehicle. Now, I like Rebecca's thought process where she said everybody should be having a dually. I'm down with that because, yeah, if you want the safest rig possible, you pull it with a honking large truck. And I assure you, you're going to have better stability, the best handling. If you've got to swerve in an accident to miss a deer or a crazy fool in front of you, you're going to do better in a vehicle that's rated far greater than what you need, extra capacity. But if we're looking at the numbers and we at least want to make sure that it is safely rated and adequately rated to tow, you need to look at what it can pull, okay, and what it can carry. Nothing else. What it can pull and what it can carry. And usually the number two, what it can carry, that's the one that the manufacturers bury pretty deep in their advertising. They don't like to talk about it. We call it this little P word, which is payload, what it will carry. They love to brag about what it can pull. Oh, this Chevrolet truck or Tahoe, it's rated to pull 8,900 pounds. Okay. My 2-horse bumper pull weighs 5, and my 2 horses weigh 2,000. That's 7. My vehicle will pull almost 9. I have 2,000 pounds of capacity. My load is safe. Well, snap. What they don't try to tell you is that the tongue weight rating is only 890 pounds, and your 2-horse warm blood horse trailer probably has a tongue weight of 900 to 1,100. And in that scenario, your Tahoe would be overloaded. When we're doing the presentations or the webinars in live settings, or this is a live setting, but you know what I mean, in person rather, not through the computer, I'll generally walk up to the table. We'll have this table set up and I'll grab the table. You can't really see me here, but I say, imagine that your spouse, husband, wife, whatever, your spouse, you're in your bedroom. You decide that you want to move the dresser. Well, dresser is a pretty bulky item, but you could probably slide it. You could turn around and push it with your back. Maybe you can drag it a little bit or something. That's what you can pull, okay, or push. That's the capacity that you have to do. But pick one end of that dresser up and start trying to carry the thing around. That's what you can carry. So in the tow vehicle rating, the vehicle manufacturers, they always like to brag about the big number, which is what everybody looks like. And my truck was rated to haul 14,000 pounds. Great. How much can it carry? Because that's always the weak link in the equation. And we've got a Dodge Ram in this picture. Not a dig against Dodge, but Dodge actually is known for having the lowest payload ratings compared to the major manufacturers, Ford and Chevy and GMC, spec for spec. They almost always outdo the Dodge on the payload. So anyway, enough said about that, what it can pull and what it can carry. And if you need help calculating those things, shoot us an email. Caleb or myself will be happy to just show you how to find and how to calculate the information. Some manufacturers, like General Motors, they stamp it right on the inside of the door. They've started putting payload. I'm like, praise God, that's fantastic. But then you've got others that don't have it in their literature, like it is nowhere. So you have to figure out the weight of the truck and then the GVWR and subtract it and yada,
It's
yada.
like trying to do calculus just to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
You know, that is one of the things. There's an app for everything else. And it's ridiculous to me that you can't plug in the VIN of your trailer and the VIN of the truck you're looking at and have it at least say, you know, yes or no, or at least it's in the gray area. It's ridiculous to me because every single VIN is different. But that would also require the manufacturers to do some more of the math. There's an app for everything else on the planet, but there is not an app for that. And it would be so nice if we could come up with something like that.
Yeah, I think the challenge you have, at least in our market in the horse trailer industry, we mentioned earlier the market being so fragmented, the lack of regulatory oversight in the industry. Not many, if any, manufacturers actually weigh their trailers. We'll build a model, a 3-horse gooseneck. We take it to the big truck scale down the street. We put it on our website. That's what the base model is. And we've built enough over the years that we know if we add width and length and height, we can pretty much calculate what that stuff is. But that information's not on the VIN. It's not on the sticker, not on the sticker at all. Nor is the dry weight of the vehicle generally not on the sticker. So on the truck, right?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's not
The
on there
curb
either.
weight is not typically listed. You have to dig for
And
that.
and That is why I always tell people you should take your truck and your trailer down and get it weighed at the cat station or go to your garbage dump that has a scale and
Yep.
get the actual weight of both pieces. It tells you so much more.
Yeah, yeah, it'll tell you the tongue weight of the trailer, the overall weight of the trailer, the overall weight of the vehicle, and the difference between the number that says if your vehicle is rated to carry that amount or not. You just
Yep.
it fills in all the blanks, but you got to do a scale. You have to get it on a scale. Let's see. She didn't cause the wreck. Her decisions decided the outcome. So another driver slammed into her truck. The truck was totaled. Trailer flipped. This is Amy Chenard down in Sarasota, Florida. This happened in 2023. The trailer structure held, and all three horses walked out. She got out expecting the worst. Two of them were standing and staring. And she says, I truly believe my research on trailer safety and selecting my new custom is the reason my horses are alive today. I had the pleasure of interviewing Amy, and she was kind enough to, I think the full video, I don't remember. You can look at it on YouTube. It'll be on our site. We'll put the links to these videos on the mail out recording, the email recording that we do, so you guys can watch the full thing. But Brooke did a nice condensed version for us here, and we won't play the whole thing. Even this
one day when I took my girlfriend's imported Irish sport horse and my two over to
you're saying stop.
The other side of Florida for a fox hunt. It was a small road and it was a beautiful day. It was clear, but it was just a little two-lane road. There was cows on the left of us, and every once in a while you'd see a little side road cut off. And following traffic, having conversations, laughing. I have the camera set up in my trailer so I could see the horses were all eating and they were totally fine. And then I noticed on the side street there was a little car coming. It was a little SUV, and it wasn't slowing down for the stop sign, which I thought was like, oh, that's really weird because there's nothing to go into. It's just a cow pasture across the way. Right. And I was following traffic, and then I noticed he really wasn't stopping. And I didn't have a lot of time before I saw him and I realized he wasn't stopping. So I tried to slow down, but there's oncoming traffic coming. I certainly don't want to jackknife my trailer. It's very difficult. You can't slam on your brakes when you have such a big haul on the back of you. So I did my best, and he ended up just going right through the stop sign and hitting my passenger side back tire.
Okay. I
don't know if the motion is what caused the horses to fall forward and the trailer actually fell on its left side. Because he hit me in the back, it actually did send my truck to the right off the road instead of into oncoming traffic. So I'm very lucky that happened. And because the trailer flipped and it was still connected to the truck, well, it didn't flip, it just kind of went on its side. It caused the truck to roll. And we had 7 points of impact, so the truck really just completely disconnected from the trailer and landed into a bunch of bushes. At that point, we were kind of sideways in the truck. I couldn't see anything because my cameras had disconnected at that point, but I could hear the horses in the trailer, and you could hear their hooves just kind of like scuffing around, and we were just thinking, oh my God, this is probably going to be the worst case scenario. There's no way anything lived through this. Like, we can't believe we're alive. So I crawled out the roof of my truck because I had a sunroof. Thank goodness. The glass had shattered. I came out through the roof and I went to the back to see, because I was expecting a really big mess in there. And it was, my two horses were just standing up and they looked under the tack trailer at me and they said, are we done? Are we going?
Right.
Like, what's going on?
Right.
And I thought, oh my God, how are you alive? Like, honestly, right. God, how are you alive? I couldn't believe it because when we had the EMT show up and the fire station showed up, the first thing that we heard them say was, basically asking how many bodies they had to pull up and take care of. And the fact was that every single person in that truck survived, and all those horses walked right out. And my friend had to come pick us up with her trailer, and I thought, there's no way these horses are getting on another trailer, and they walked right on. So
Wow.
I had a 3500 Ram, top of the line truck. It was fairly new. It was under a year old. My trailer was under a year old. It was brand new equipment. And that truck did a great job of saving our lives in the cab, but it got completely destroyed. The whole frame of the truck, like it was gone. The trailer, on the other hand, it had a little buckle in that front gooseneck area on the floor, but the shape was completely intact. I almost thought for a second, should I just get it repaired? Like it was in that good of a shape, but it wouldn't have been the same. So of course I ordered a new one, because at that point I'm never putting my horses in anything else except for a double D trailer. Now safety is my number one concern.
I had a lot of fun interviewing Amy, and glad that turned out okay. But you could go on our site and listen to the entire interview if you'd like. It was really cool, because this lady, Sierra Howard, sent to us on, I guess Brooke had an ad running on Facebook with Rebecca's pretty face there and advertising our next webinars coming up for part 2. And Sierra says, I have one of your trailers that was in a roller, which she meant rollover, in Okeechobee, which that's Amy's trailer. I wasn't in the accident, but seeing the aftermath, hearing what happened, and that the horses all made it with minor injuries, and the fact that the frame of the trailer, now remember, I showed you guys about framing, and I showed you tensile ratings and all that. The frame of the trailer is still almost completely whole. You've won my loyalty. We plan to fix it up and use it. They had to cut a hole in the roof to get one of the horses out. Great job on materials and design. So any questions, send those to us in an email. We will certainly do our best, and we will respond to each and every one of those. If you'd like to read our book, doubledtrailers.com/free book, just pop in your address on that, and Brooke will be happy to mail that out to you. If you'd like to book a call or talk to us face-to-face, we love doing video calls. There's a scheduler right on our site. And we don't have to talk about a horse trailer that you're trying to buy from us. We have a lot of folks that reach out to us just for towing information or questions on their own trailer, and we will give you some good feedback on that. Our next webinar, which I'm excited about, trailer accident rescue and survival with Miss Rebecca, not going to say doctor, Wednesday, August the 26th at 11 o'clock. And I think we already have about 1,300 folks again signed up for that one. I'm looking forward to it. We've discussed today the decisions that we make, and I think she'll just knock it out of the ballpark for us on what happens when crap hits the fan, so to speak. So if you're not registered for the next webinar, you could go on the site and do that. Okay.
I challenge everybody on this to bring a friend. I mean, if you learned something today, make your friends safer instead of worried about, sliding and gliding and going around barrels and doing a pee-off or pee-stoff. Bring a friend. Get them hooked up. Let's make them safer. Because really, that's the way you get to that show or that trail ride or that event, is safely in a trailer. Everybody has to use them. So let's make them safer. I appreciate Double D for hosting this today, and I'm looking forward to the one in August.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate the time and the opportunity. This was fun. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Rebecca.
Bye.